my fun with the book is over,
Sure.
and now it belongs to people.
Yeah.
And so I put my email ID in the novel just to tell people like, hey, if you finish reading this, please send me praise only to this to this email ID because I'm desperate to know.
Samsung Galaxy Tab S9 series Jaipur Literature Festival is, of course, Jaipur Bites, where we see if we can get into the minds of those who create the art. And the art of creation is something that Kanan Gill has taken bites out of various dishes, so to speak. I mean, started off with a double header, as pretentious movie reviews. Then, of course, decided egos are very big, and then I mean, I'm just trying to see if I can get some really bad gossip going somewhere. But then, of course, there was stand-ups, there's movies, and now a book. It's called Acts of God, 399 rupees only. Very
$3.99
nice.
only, good price, high quality
Great
paper,
price.
makes for a great paperweight.
Yeah.
The taste is not so good. That's my only gripe with HarperCollins is like I expected a better tasting book.
Yeah.
But everything else, just reading it actually I feel is the best way to engage with the book. But
yeah.
I don't want to be prescriptive.
No, I think
if you're in the habit of flinging books, that's completely up to you.
The best way, of course, is to turn one page after the other after the last word has been read, I think, yeah?
If that's your sort of thing, yeah.
If that's your thing.
Yeah.
Your thing, of course, started off with with two people, and scripting is something that I want to talk to you about.
Okay,
I mean,
sure. Yeah.
You started off bouncing ideas off each other, I'm assuming, with the pretentious movie
very much,
reviews. And then, of course, you went solo with your specials, with your stand-ups, etc. And the book also is pretty much a solo pursuit as far as writing is concerned. What's the difference? I mean, was there a difference that you found in the collaborative process and the solo process?
Oh, very much, yeah. There are some things that are best done with collaborators, like writing a movie, for example. I will say that you can draw a distinction between solitude and loneliness. Okay.
Yeah, sure.
So writing a book alone is a beautiful, solitary, enriching experience. Creating stand-up is done in front of a live audience. So in that sense, it's collaboratory because the audience tells you what is good and what is worth keeping in the show.
Sure.
Despite the fact that it's always funny in a room where you're doing stand-up and there's like 1,000 people watching. And actually, practically in the room, only I know how to do stand-up.
Sure.
And so I am the best judge. But unfortunately, the arts are doomed to be judged by people who actually do not do them.
And with a frightening immediacy, no?
Like immediately the silence of 1,000 people I told you is extremely crushing.
Absolutely.
So for example, a lonely pursuit, like writing a movie, is I find much more fun to do with someone. But writing a solitary pursuit of writing a novel is plumbing the depths of your own psyche.
Sure. Yeah, of course.
Whether you like to or not.
For sure.
You cannot avoid the leakage of the things you feel and the things you believe accidentally coming into the page.
Sure.
And so in that sense, it was wonderfully freeing. The most freeing aspect was the complete absence of a live audience. So your failures are private.
Sure.
You can delete any sentence and no one has to ever know that you wrote this horrible garbage piece of shit.
Now, of course, we save this and we put it into a little box to the side because first and foremost, we need to plug the book. Acts of God, it's called. We didn't even tell you the name. That's horrible. Acts of God, it's called. It's comedic science fiction, according to the blurb at the back. But you are not in love with that label, are you?
I feel just saying sci-fi to people immediately puts most people on the back foot, being like, this fucking sci-fi, I don't want to read sci-fi. Many people are put off by the notion of sci-fi, unless people absolutely love sci-fi. And so I'll say the book is soft sci-fi, better qualified as speculative fiction.
Sure.
What kind of speculation you see?
Read the book.
Yeah, because the book is not about science fiction. Science fiction is the backdrop which allows the book to take place. And so in that sense, yes, there is science fiction in the novel, but science fiction is only the mechanism to deliver the human story, forming the basis of the novel.
Sure. There's also the fact that, science fiction fans can be quite rabid.
So I don't want to disappoint them, and I don't want to exclude people who don't read it.
For sure.
So that way, I'm just pandering to the largest possible crowd.
But there's not just science fiction. There's also mystery around as well. There's a detective there and all of that. Yes.
Yes. So the plot of the novel for the uninterested people in the room.
No, they're all interested. They're just.
Well, they're hostages, so now you have to listen.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. It's based on a private detective P. Manjunath from Bangalore, India, who is I describe as vacuous, but really an inscrutable, absurd character who appears to have no skill, yet is able to get at the bottom of every mystery purely by he can weaponize serendipity to his own ends. So he always seems to find himself in the right place at the right time and gets to the bottom of things in a way that even surprises him. And so he is investigating mysterious events taking place across the globe. And no one has asked him to investigate this.
Sure.
He just feels like he has to. He follows intuition's call. And him doing this accidentally puts him at odds with who he doesn't know is the creator of the world that he lives in.
Sure.
And so what follows is a cat and mouse game between creator and created. And I thought it was super interesting. If you were literally the god of a world and you were actually omnipotent, but exercising your omnipotence sort of undoes the fabric of the world that you have created.
For sure.
So you have to use restraint in a way that you want to. If you want the people, your subjects of your world to do something, you can't outright tell them. That will destroy the world itself.
For sure.
And so the creator of the world is trying to do something. P. Manjunath is a spanner in the works. And what unfolds actually is I think what HarperCollins says, a delightful mix of humor, imaginativeness, and philosophical provocations. Yeah.
If I remember last evening's conversation, they also called it surprisingly moving.
Yeah.
Yeah, surprisingly moving.
I made them.
You were only there to make them laugh. How could you move them?
Yeah. I mean, the accurate blurb for the book is a thinly disguised veneer for my many philosophical opinions. But that I think is not very appealing to put on the back of a novel.
Yeah.
But parts of it are moving if you're the sort of person who is mobile.
Yeah. Wow. What a revelation.
I have read many allegedly moving books and I have not been moved. So I don't want to.
Yeah, because it is a subjective pursuit, isn't it? Reading.
Of course.
It's intensely personal.
Yeah, there's a very miserable sort of novel. No, it's a lonely person displaced abroad. Why am I here? Sort of things. Yeah, many often you read those novels and you're like, why are you here? Just go home if you hate it so much.
Yeah. The cynical part of the brain will always kick in. The fluidity of the creation of sentences will always be dried up with cynicism, which is lovely. The rancid breath of cynicism. But we were interviewing Paul Lynch, and he said something absolutely fantastic because I asked him. He's been compared to Cormac McCarthy, and he's been Samuel Beckett as well. So I thought I asked him how he felt about that, and he says, a great man said, a book is made up of other books.
Yeah.
So I mean, when I was reading the book, and I'm at the 6th chapter now.
Okay.
Which is heavy going right now, as you said.
6 out of 32.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but it's brilliant because it makes you think, which is a lovely pursuit in these times. But also, I'm also a very big Douglas Adams fan. So the whole Dirk Gently's holistic detective agency came to mind. Do you agree that what you read influences what you write? Were you consciously aware of it, or was the writing process entirely devoid of any of those thoughts?
Consciously aware, no. But like I was saying earlier, I think it's impossible to avoid spiritual leaks in whatever you create. And it's not just what you read. Everything that goes in somewhere will come out in what you do.
Sure.
Which is why I make a very active effort to engage myself in to see all sorts of absurd things, because I'll spend 3 hours in a shoe museum. I've really done this. It's a museum of just shoes and being terribly bored the entire time, but not consciously mining it for anything, just knowing that this may result in something somewhere sometime down the line. I go to Belgium, and instead of drinking beer, I went to the Museum of Ancient Musical Instruments, and I was there for 6 hours, just reading every bit of wall text, being like, okay, so this lute is slightly different from the Lithuanian lute. Glad to know. And even though I doubt that's going to make an appearance in the next novel, but I do feel like you are against your own will transformed by every experience that you have.
Sure.
And if you are in the position to curate some of those experiences, go and expose yourself to strange and wonderful things.
Which is what you pretty much do in the absurdity of the everyday is what you capture so beautifully in your work mostly. But does that also rob you sometimes unconsciously maybe of truly experiencing a moment because you're looking at it like it's something that might make for content later?
Oh no, yeah, no, that's a very conscious separation that I make. Is like, don't try to mine this for output.
It'd be great to know how, though.
Great to know how.
How the conscious separation is made, because you're looking at it and suddenly, as you said, like, oh, loot, different. Okay, that might go well in my next special.
Okay, so if something strikes, then something strikes. Very often nothing strikes. I think the frustration comes from trying to have an experience and being like, what can I get out of this? I am extremely bored. Where in fact, I am okay with being extremely bored by what I'm subjected to. And just knowing that if I'm not getting anything from this, it's fine. Because I am in some ineffable way being transformed by this. Yeah.
But, this is a generation that's furiously capturing every moment so that they don't miss it. And of course, they might or might not look at it, but they're furiously capturing it. Do you also sometimes the FOMO bit of it, the fear of missing out, do you, like, I've got an idea because I looked at a loot. Do you furiously write it down somewhere? Does that happen? I mean, as far as...
No. And I think this is a personal thing. But I've been... in the entertainment business, I suppose, for like 11 or 12 years. And before you feel very precious about, and different people, I think David Lynch says, oh, if you miss an idea, you miss it, it's gone forever.
Yeah.
And who am I to refute what David Lynch says? But I do believe that if you forget something, it wasn't insistent enough to, like, sometimes you have an idea and you forget it, and then 5 years later the idea will return. And that's when the time was for the idea to be expressed, when it was mature. So I'm not precious about it, and I also I spend a lot of time investigating the nature of creativity because it is my job, and I can't afford to be blocked.
Of course.
Because especially when I do stand-up, I release the last show and they book the next tour, and I don't have a show yet, but I better. In 3 months, people are coming. We've sold the tickets. So
Absolutely.
I don't have the luxury of being blocked. So I investigate the nature of the process, and I find that your agency in creativity is actually just, in my opinion, is not so much as standing on one side of a assembly line, pressing levers and putting buttons. It's honestly just being patient and seeing what comes. And your act is actually of transcribing the ether. That sounds very pretentious, but okay.
But it makes sense. Also, I work in radio. There are days when you don't feel it. That's when the seduction of the past comes in, where you know that there's a song, where you know where the intro is going to be, so you know exactly 7 seconds down. You can stop and say, here it comes. And in the end, you know that there's an outro, so you can sound cool doing it because you've done it so many times. There's a seduction of of repetition, so to speak. But you've very studiously avoided going back to the work that you've done. I know how many times I've seen in the comment section, why not some more pretentious movie reviews? Do you feel sometimes that when, I'm sure you have your phases as well when you're not feeling it, do you feel, the seduction of going back to something that you've done so beautifully so many times that it will probably come a little more naturally to you so that you can move forward a little from that little block?
Never.
No? There's no past for you as far as work is concerned?
Oh, well, the past is an illusion, Sarthak.
Oh my God.
There is no evidence that the past exists.
It exists,
but however, I am a...
Master Oogway.
I genuinely believe that, though. But also, the point, and to be very honest, all of the things that I make or anyone makes, primarily it's for you first, right? You are the first audience of your work. And the only time you get to have fun in the creative process is during it. There is no fun before, and there is no fun after. You cannot... actually, you never really arrive in life, right? How many milestones is what's going to be the thing that's going to happen and then it'll be enough.
Sure.
So that never happens. And so that I don't chase it. So I'm always looking for the excitement in the process of making things. And that's always in making something new.
And we forget, no? I mean, as audiences, we make that demand of you because it's our comfort zone, you know? Like, I cannot avoid an analogy, but if you were to ask most of the big bands who made it really, really big, the songs that they hate playing most are the most popular songs.
Yeah.
Because they just have to keep doing it again and again and again. And, you know, there is that whole linguistics theory where if you repeat something often enough, it stops making sense.
Yeah.
Writing and editing is probably something where you have to, of necessity, repeat yourself. So, was there a point in the writing process where you were thinking of something funny and then you edited it and re-edited it? Not just in the book, but in all the other material that you write, it stops making sense. I mean, because repetition needs to be, it needs to land, I think is the right expression to use, no?
Yeah, I think there's a real danger of this happening with stand-up. Because you forget the emotion or the reason for the things that you're saying and the heft behind them and what came up, why the reason they came up in the first place.
Sure.
Yeah, with the novel also, man, you keep reading sentences and you're like, actually, this paragraph that I loved, it's just time to just piece of garbage. I should just junk it.
Sure.
And so I also, in the process of writing the book, instituted a lot of gaps.
Sure.
After I wrote it, I let it sit for a year. I didn't read it. And so after a year, I picked it back up and be like, okay, it's far more self-indulgent than I thought.
Wow, I wrote this?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think it's great. I'm my biggest fan also. But I was like, parts of this is going on for a long time. So
Sure.
I got a next hit. But yeah, there was no point where it felt, at least for this book, where it felt like I was reading it so much that it lost meaning to me.
Also, the lack of immediacy of reaction, was that something new? Was that a novelty for you, considering, you know, I'd asked you about this, I'm going to ask you again about the failed joke. I mean, you're on stage, there's a failed joke, you move on to the next one, but in the book, you'll never really know.
Yeah, I mean, actually, it was like extremely liberating to not have people sitting and being like, okay, come on, next one.
Hasao, yeah.
Yeah,
I know.
Which is, you had its own place. I really enjoyed that as well. But it was very freeing, so I didn't worry about it. And I tried to get some confidence in the fact that, you know, I have spent a very long time building up the skills to do this reliably. And hopefully now I have pretty reasonable sense of what is good and what isn't.
Sure.
However, the fact that it really does take a very long time for people to tell you what your book is like.
Yeah.
You know, like I finished writing it. Like I told you, my fun with the book is over.
Sure.
And now it belongs to people.
Yeah.
And so I put my email ID in the novel just to tell people like, hey, if you finish reading this, please send me praise only to this to this email ID, because I'm desperate to know. Because this is also a very different way people read books very differently.
Sure.
Because it demands you cannot unconsciously or inattentively really do justice to a book.
Sure.
You can tune out in a movie and you can tune out even playing a song. But to read a book, it demands that you digest it mentally at least. So people are sending emails and I'm very intrigued at the themes that they are finding and the themes they are missing and the themes they are creating.
Sure.
And so some of those I get to say yes and no, and some of those get to be like, that's actually a better idea than the one I had, but I mean, the book belongs to you now, so you tell me what you think.
Which also, you know, leads me to something that was in my head for a long time. There's the voice. You use your voice, you use the silences, you use the gaps. But in the book, the voice is entirely in the reader's head.
Yeah.
Which means that the writing process of a special for an OTT platform and the writing for a book must be two separate processes in my head. But are they?
Extremely different. Writing a comedy show, like I was saying earlier, stand-up is generated in speech.
Yeah.
It's best not to write it down and say it, because then you become a person reciting a script rather than being the person who is, you know, communicating with the audience. With the written word, it's far more exciting because I'm writing it in my voice. Or if there are characters, then I know what the characters sound like, and the characters are talking amongst themselves in their voices. And it's actually a hope that I can telepathically communicate how I expect it to sound. And you have some control over that with the language they use and the rhythm of your sentences. Well, ultimately, like you said, it's on them. And so the written word actually gives you the luxury of being funny in a very different way. And so it's far more relaxed. Even something that is funny to sit, like there's laugh out loud bits in the book.
Yeah.
But if I read it out loud to you, it suddenly isn't very funny anymore.
Exactly.
It's meant to be read, and so I was just aware of that it's a different mechanism.
Sure.
And I didn't worry too much beyond that.
So, you remember when you started consuming comedy? You remember the first bit of knee slapping, throwing the head back, laugh out loud thing that made you think, "Wow, this is something worth doing." Do you remember those moments of consumption rather than creation?
I think when I was a kid, the first really funny book I read, I think I would have been 6 or something, was Charlie and the Chocolate Factory.
Oh,
yeah, and I
okay.
was like, this is, you can do this. This is allowed. Books can be funny. And me as a kid, I remember thinking.
Sure.
And that, I think, was really formative in my personality for the remainder of my life.
For sure. Wow, books can be funny.
I didn't know it was allowed. Honestly, it's the best kind of book, film, music, or anything to listen to. Is you watch it and you're like, you could have done this the whole time, where someone opens a door to a way of being free in an art form that you didn't know was possible, because subconsciously you have built barriers around yourself. Like, this is what's allowed in the medium, this is what's not allowed.
Sure.
And then someone comes along and does something great, and you're like, oh, yes, of course, you can do this also. You could have done it the whole time.
Sure.
I think the best case scenario is when you are able to make something like that yourself. If we should be so lucky.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
On a scale of 1 to oh damn, where where does oh Kanan, tell me a joke land?
Is oh damn below or above? There are many
Whichever
ways
you
to
want,
say oh damn.
entirely open to you.
Oh, Karan, tell me a joke is, I'll tell you what, it doesn't happen.
Okay.
Because I typically, I'm very reclusive. Okay, actually. I'm hugely reclusive. I don't talk to people and I don't do interviews. Well, it's a pleasure talking to you, but typically I don't.
Thank you.
The only time this happens is at immigration in other countries. Yeah. So when I'm going to a different country and they were like, why have you come to the United States? And I'm like, actually, so if you go to the US, you have to go on something called a genius visa, okay? It's literally.
So you have a genius visa,
I have
is
a
it?
genius visa.
Certified.
It's called a person of
Fantastic.
extraordinary ability.
Oh.
Yeah. And you have to prove your extraordinary ability. So the immigration officer is like, so, what's your extraordinary ability? I'm like, oh, actually, I tell jokes. And then they say, tell me a joke. And that's a very high stress situation to
Oh,
tell
damn.
a joke in. And so I have one. I have one prepared.
Yes, please.
Oh, I do a knock-knock joke. Yeah.
You do a knock-knock joke?
Yeah. Okay, I know a knock-knock joke. This is what I do. All immigration. You guys can use it if you like. Okay? I know a knock-knock joke, but you have to start it.
Okay, knock-knock.
Who's there?
Okay, got it.
Yeah. I'll put it on you and everybody's like,
Wow. I mean,
welcome to our country.
I have read a little bit about comedy. My inner pseudo would not have let me live if I didn't read about the process. So, yes, I know about transference, which was beautifully used on this one. As do punching down. We are a society that loves making fun of other people. You know, it's a bit of a punching down thing that we've all. I mean, till pretentious movie reviews came out, other things similar came out. We were brought up on a steady diet of comedy challenges where, body shaming was casual, sexism was, part of the bit, etc., etc. Did you consume any of that content subconsciously, considering that we were all at one point of time prisoners to that kind of content? And what did you think about it?
What's funny is honestly like a generational thing.
Sure.
Yeah. And so you actually don't want to find yourself at a place where you have developed your comedic sensibility and you're holding on to it and you refuse to change with the values that have changed.
Sure.
And so, yeah, in the sense that obviously you consume every kind of comedy that exists in to be consumed around.
Sure.
But also at the same time, your sensibility also it's a very much a dialogue with what is happening in the world and the values of the world, which defines what will be funny.
Sure.
Because it's a very small line between something being funny and mean. and who consciously wants to be mean-spirited?
Absolutely,
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
Absolutely, we don't wake up wanting to be sad or.
Who wants that? I'm gonna make people feel bad today.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, wow,
Yeah.
it's going to be fun. I've asked this question to a lot of people, and the diversity of answers has been absolutely wonderful.
Okay, go for it. High pressure question. Go.
It's basically about the responsibility of the art. Now, I asked some of the actors. They said, I don't think that art should be burdened with any responsibility because it will hamper the process of creation. The other side was that you have a voice that you can use to influence people with beauty, and beauty goes down much better. The bitter pill and the sweetness of the covering.
Yes.
So it is incumbent on an artist to actually say things about things that are happening around them that will make some sort of a difference. Do you have a stand on it? Are you in the middle? Do you have views?
Let me give you the perfect politician's answer. Sarthak, both are correct.
Wow.
Yeah. Both have their own place.
So beautiful.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's very understandable as an artist to say like, hey, man, your work has you have a social responsibility, and you have people read what you do and people consume what you do, so you need to be careful about what you make. And as an artist, you completely understand being on the back foot, be like, what the fuck, man?
Yeah.
I just want to make things. But also, it's completely understandable being on the receiving end of that and seeing the impact that things have. So actually, they are both true.
I'm going to try and impose myself on this question, though. For all its public nature, art is still a very, very personal thing to the person who's making it, because you
Also
are
to the person who is consuming it.
Also, yeah, of course, absolutely. But as a person making it, do you feel that sometimes that content that you make should reflect the sign of the times, etc., or is it a very isolated kind of a creation process?
I think you're gunning for authenticity.
Sure.
If you try to color what you make with any sort of intention to achieve a specific outcome, it becomes insincere. Okay, so you want to trust as yourself as a person alive in the times,
Sure.
who is informed and open, and trust that your dialogue with what is happening currently will inform what you make, and there is no need to, I feel, make a conscious effort to steer things a certain way or the other.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, you surrender to the process.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Till chapter 4, the book is very heavy. Acts of God.
Dense.
It's very dense.
Dense, I have been told.
After which it gets easier to read.
More
I
dense.
Suddenly realized that we hadn't spoken about the book which needs to be spoken a little more about. It's called Acts of God. The wonderful Kanan Gill has written it. 399 rupees only.
Yes.
But you told me that you wanted to get the heavy stuff over with so that people could actually just climb that mountain, and then the wonderful slide down the beautiful little slope of enjoying the novel. You want to take us through that process a little?
The process is of discovery. I think everyone has a different way that they approach it. For me, it was actually starting with the seed of the idea and figuring it out as I went along, which is a very exciting thing to do if you're patient and kind with yourself.
Sure.
And so very often I would put people in a predicament one day. And at the end of the day, I'd be like, I'm done with today's writing. Good luck getting out of this, assholes. And then wake up in the morning the next day, I'm like, man, how are they going to get out of this? And so in that way, it's very exciting. So that's why the book ended up being front-loaded with some stuff.
Sure.
Is because I was figuring out what the book was about as well while writing it. So pacing is a difficult thing to, I don't know, keep your foot on if you don't plan out what the book is about before you start. And I think that's fine. I think that's fun. Some of the best novels I have read have no plot.
Yeah.
They build up to something and then it's over. You're like, wow, okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but it's about your communication with the novel. It's about being transformed by what you've read.
Sure.
And the process in itself was making it up as I went along, like I said. But actually, a genuinely transformative process for me, writing this novel. And I hope if I can bottle one feeling in the book, it is of transformation. If I may sound extremely conceited when I say this, the feeling I'd like to bottle and transmit and package and advertise and sell to people is of transformation. The book transformed me to write it. And if one thing you can take away from it, even if you hate it, is to be willfully transformed by the novel.
Addictive enough to write more?
already written 2 more books.
Oh,
Yeah. I've been writing for decades. It was just I had no confidence
Sure.
in my ability. And good enough. I'm very glad I didn't publish anything before. I wanted to feel my feet on the ground properly
sure.
and enter the literary world in earnest. Because I do understand it's very easy to dismiss something written by a comedian as just a book some comic wrote.
Sure,
And I'm acutely aware of that.
Sure.
And so I wanted to enter the lit world in earnest, be published properly by people who care about the book, not because I can sell a lot of copies, is because it's a good book.
Sure.
And that took some time, and I'm glad I took that time. And so now that I'm in, and the momentum is going, writing is what I've been building up to my entire life.
Sure.
And now that I can, I never stop.
Also, finally, the double-edged sword of celebrity. I mean, the fact that you're stopped every 1.5 minutes for a selfie or I'm a big fan versus the perceived liberation of going around anywhere you want. Views on that?
Well, I mean, nobody in this room has any idea who I am. So, it's fine. It's a subjective... depends on the room you're in. Yeah. I pick and choose the rooms I'm in. That's all. So everybody's texting.
Yeah, it's absolutely delectable the way that you are using the room as content. It's fine. It's absolutely.
Okay,
absolutely
if you're on camera, I mean, you're watching this at home, you can't see what the room is like.
You have no
Let
idea.
me paint you
Yeah.
a picture. It is a decadent.
Yeah. They are serious. They're
There's
looking
just
at us.
solid gold
yeah,
everywhere.
yeah.
People are lying on chaise lounges being fed grapes.
Absolutely.
By
And they're-
people in...
I also think they're looking at us with judgmental eyes, thinking, what is all this pretentious stuff that they're talking about?
yeah,
now?"
that's true. That's
yeah,
true.
I think
Yeah.
so. So I think let's just stop.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
it's,
After this, the harp player will come on stage.
Yes.
And there's going to be...
the lute as well with crossed legs, which will be beautiful to listen to. But it's been beautiful having had this conversation with you.
pleasure. Sarthak.
Kanan Gill, the book is called Acts of God. It's out there for you to buy. And no, there is unfortunately no comment section under the book for you to sort of, which of course has been conveniently circumvented by Kanan giving his email ID out in the book. So even if it is just to get Kanan Gill's email ID, so you could tell him, I'm a fan with the 7 A's. You should buy it. It's lovely, and it's absolutely lovely. The generosity with which you share your experiences, always very gratifying to do that. Kanan Gill, ladies and gentlemen,
My
on Jaipur
pleasure,
Bites.
Sarthak. I appreciate your feedback. I look forward to it.
Yeah.
Thank
and
you.
of course, if you've got ideas about Jaipur Bites, our comment section is open. So please do let us know what you think about this. And
They're clapping because it's over.
yeah, I know. So is this. Thank you for watching.